Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this is part 5 of the soda can packaging design tutorial series. Today we'll be working on the back of the packaging, so I'll be telling you all about the information you need to create the back label. In the next part of the series I will be covering a few more things, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't watched the previous parts, they're up on my channel and you can go watch them before you watch this. Timestamps are also in the description if you need to skip to a particular part of the video. I will also upload a shorter process video once I'm done editing all the long parts of the series. And with that being said, let's get into the video. Okay, so now we're going to start working on the back of the packaging. So first I'll duplicate this shape by holding Alt and dragging. I'm going to rotate it by 180 degrees, increase the size, and I'm also going to drag another duplicate, and I'm holding shift right now so it doesn't move vertically and it stays on the same line as our original shape. So I basically want to create a longer shape of the shape that we created earlier, so that's why I'm using two of them, aligning them together, and then I will join them using the shape builder tool. You can also use the pathfinder tool. You just have to select both the shapes and hit unite. Now I'm going to add some text to this shape, so I'm going to go to my text tool, click once and write about the product, and I will align it to the center of the shape. I'm going to give it the same font that we used in the logo, and I'm also going to give it a tracking of 100 because the letters are spaced too close to each other. And just like before, I'm going to stretch it a little bit vertically so that it's slightly more compressed. I think it makes it easier to read in this case because we have a very narrow and tall font. And I also want to make this font thinner, so I'll give it a blue stroke. Now I'm going to add the product description below it. So instead of clicking using the text tool like we normally do, this time I'm going to drag out a box to create a text box. There are a few reasons why I'm doing this and I'll explain that. But first I'm going to copy paste my text. So as you can see, by default our sentences are left aligned. But if you go to paragraph and click justify all lines, it will adjust the spacing of the words in such a way that you get clean ends on both sides. Let me just show you the different types of paragraph alignment that you can get. So here I've created a few examples of paragraph alignment. So the first one is a left aligned text. So as you can see, the left side of the three sentences start at the same point, but the right side is sort of zigzag-ish and the ends of each sentence are at different points. The second one is a center aligned paragraph. So all the sentences are aligned to one single point and the spacing between each words is the same, but you most likely won't have clean ends. You will have like a zigzag shape at both the ends of this paragraph. The last one is a justified style paragraph, and here you can see that all the words form a perfect box. The left and the right sides look clean and they form a straight line. The only thing to note is that the spacing isn't the same between each word. So sometimes this option doesn't work quite well. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to add a few more words to this paragraph. Sometimes when there are not enough words in a sentence, the spacing can be quite uneven and it might look really weird. So in this case, what you can do is you can highlight the last line and click this option that says justify with last line align left. So what this does is it left aligns only the last line and makes the overall paragraph look much cleaner. But you have to make sure to apply this option to only the last line. If you try using this option to the whole box, it will just work like the left align option. There isn't any difference between these two options if you select the whole box. So make sure you're only doing it to the last line to create this effect. Now let me show you a few quick hacks that you can use while working with text. So if you want to change a lowercase sentence to uppercase, All you need to do is select the text, go to type, change case, and click uppercase. You also have title case and sentence case. So sometimes when you write a sentence and you realize that you actually wanted to write it in a different case, you don't have to delete the whole thing and start again. You can literally just use these buttons to choose whatever case you like. So this tool comes in handy a lot. Okay, another thing is if you have a text box and you want to increase the size, if you try to increase it like this, it does not increase. You have to increase the font size in your type properties and then increase the size of the box, and this will ruin the format that you already have. So if you don't want to change the spacing or the words of your text and you just want to increase the size as it is, what you can do is you can select your text box, go to type and click convert to point type. So now this is not a text box anymore, but you can easily scale it up and down. So when you're using the text tool and you click once, the kind of text you get is known as a point type. But when you drag out a box, it's called an area type. An area type fits the text into the box that we have. So it might be confusing at first, like why there are so many distinctions. But when you're working with layouts, sometimes you just want to fit a lot of text into a particular space, and that's where the area type will come into handy. But sometimes you just want to keep the text as it is. You don't want to change the spacing or the positioning of the words. You just want to change the size of it, and in that case you can use the point type. So converting them from one to another can be really useful. Now I'm going to copy paste the rest of the text that I want to include in the back of the packaging. I will provide this text in the description in case you want to use the same one. Basically, I'm just going to draw a text box and then copy paste all my text. All the text is going to be placed in the order of importance. Everything that the customers will be interested in will go at the top, and information like the manufacturer details, license number, all of that is going to be placed at the bottom. This is the rough placement I have currently. I will be drawing a box to highlight the nutritional information, and I also want to place a barcode in between the license number and the manufacturer details. Usually when you're working with the client, they will provide you a barcode which you can copy paste into your Illustrator file, but since this is a fake project, I'm going to download a vector barcode from the internet and then just copy paste it in. Now with barcodes, usually the client will ask you to place them on a white background. Black barcode with white background is what you will see on most products, but from the information that I could find on the internet, as long as there is enough contrast between the barcode and the background of your packaging, you don't need to necessarily add a white background to it. Any color would work as long as it is visible. When I'm working on a real project, I will most likely go with the black and white barcode, but since this is not a real product, I'm just going to skip the white background and give my barcode a dark blue color just so it fits more with my color scheme. Now I'm going to change the font of all the text that we have copy pasted. Make sure that you're not using a lot of fonts in your design. In this entire design, I'm only using 2 fonts. Any more than that and your design can look extremely chaotic. One thing I like to do when I want variety in my fonts, but I don't necessarily want to use a lot of fonts, I use a variable font family. So for example, this font Poppins over here, this has a lot of variety. So you have bold, semi-bold, regular, so many different options that you can choose from. But another thing that you can do, this is a hack that I showed you before in one of the earlier videos. When you have a font like this one where you don't have any weight variations, what you can do is you can select the text and give it a thicker stroke of the same color as the text to make the font look bolder, or you can select the background color on the stroke to make the font look thinner. So that's a very useful trick that you can use. So I'm just going to change all the fonts and adjust the spacing and size. I'm trying to use the same font size for most of these elements. If you use multiple different font sizes, your design can look chaotic. So try not to use too many font sizes. Now that I'm done with that, I want to separate the nutritional information by putting it in a separate box. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'll round the corners, and now I'm going to select the text that was in blue and give it the same fill as the background color, since it is now going to be placed on top of a blue rectangle. With all the text selected, I'm going to click Ctrl Shift right bracket on my keyboard, and this will bring all the text to the front. So when I drag the rectangle in, the text is in front and it is not covered by the rectangle. Now I'm going to create a line here to separate the nutritional information. So I'm going to change this to stroke, select the background color as the main color, and I will draw a line using the pen tool by clicking on a point, holding shift and clicking another point. Hit escape to exit this shape and your line is ready. So with the nutritional information, what I've done here is I have grouped two text boxes together and they have the same leading. So leading is basically the spacing between lines. So right now I have given this a leading of 8 points. One of these text boxes is left aligned and the other one is right aligned, and that is how I'm achieving this justified text effect. Now we're going to do a lot of alignment and distribution. So first I'm going to center align all these elements to each other, and then I'm going to adjust the spacing so that the nutritional information and the serving size text are closer together, and I will group those two together, and I'll also group the left and right aligned text together. So now we have 3 sections here: the top heading, the bottom information, and the line in the middle. And I'll make sure that the spacing is evenly distributed here by going to window, align, and vertical distribute space. And after that I'll group the entire thing together and center align it vertically and horizontally to the rectangle. So now we have equal spacing around the text. And finally I'm going to group the entire thing together, the rectangle and the text and the line, so that is one whole unit. I'm going to reduce the size of this text box because there is a lot of empty space here, and that will mess with our alignment. And then I will group the top elements together. I'm also going to left align the bottom text to the nutritional information, and I will align the manufacturer details to the guide we have on the right, and I'll make sure that this bottom text is aligned to the bottom guide. If you have an area type text box in your design, you need to make sure that the bounding box is right at the bottom of your text, or else if you try to align it with the guide will be aligned to the bounding box and not to the bottom of the line. So make sure that there is not a lot of space between your text and the end of your bounding box. This particular text is a point type, and I know that because when I'm trying to reduce the size of the bounding box, the text is getting stretched instead. So I'm going to convert it into area type, and now I can adjust the bounding box of this. So if you notice closely, this text is not completely aligned to the guide, even though I've brought the bounding box to the end of the text, and that's because there is a comma in this text which doesn't have the same baseline as the other letters of the sentence. So I can't reduce the size of the bounding box even more. So in this case, I'll just manually use the down arrow on my keyboard to bring it to the guide. You need to make sure that every element on your design is properly aligned. So just to explain the concept of layout design and how to align things properly, I've drawn a few rectangles over my elements. You don't need to do this. I just want to show you how I look at layouts. So basically you need to look at each element of your design as a rectangle. So here I have 3 main rectangles. We have the top section, the middle section, and the bottom section. And inside the bottom we have a few more sub elements, and even inside them you have different types of text, the barcode, the line, you have all different things. So basically you need to ensure that all of these things are aligned to each other. So what I mean by that is, if any of these sub elements do not form this perfect rectangle, then your spacing is a little off. And you can always check your alignment and spacing using the align and distribute panel. You can use these rectangles, so select all 3 of your major rectangles, and here I'm going to try to center align them to check if they are center aligned, and you can see that the rectangles have offset a little bit, so this tells me that the elements are not center aligned. So now I'm going to adjust my elements so that they fit these rectangles correctly. So this can get a little confusing, but once you start working with more and more layouts, you will start to understand this concept. So the key to understanding layout design is practice. So I took a break from filming and I got back to this packaging, and now that I'm looking at it again, there are a few changes that I want to make to this design. So first of all, I think I'll give this a size of 7. I'll also reduce the text box size. I'll also reduce the size of this one a little bit. Sometimes you just need to move away from your screen for a little bit, and when you come back you might spot things that you might not have spotted before. Like in this case, I felt like the proportions were slightly off, and these are things that you'll only learn once you start observing layouts more and more. If you're just starting out, you might not notice these small differences, but even small changes in proportion can really make or break the design. What you can also do is look at other reference packaging and compare the sizes of different elements in those packaging, so you can figure out what size you should use for your packaging.